Hi guys, I wish I could say that this is the first ever Schaublin22 video on YouTube. However, this guy beat me to it with about a couple of weeks. He put a for sale video out on YouTube end of February, beginning of March. It was bad quality and very short, so this is almost the first Schaublin22 video on the internet. Behind me here you see my newly purchased used Schaublin22 Swiss milling machine.
So I came across this this mill by accident. As I mentioned, it's a Swiss Schaublin22. It's a very interesting machine. It was made from the 70s until the early 90s, but they only manufactured about 600 of these, and I think the reason for this was that they were really expensive at the time, like all Schaublin machines. I got it for a decent price, actually quite cheap, and I'll explain the reason for this a little bit later. And of course, I knew about the shortcomings of the machine when I purchased it. They easily run for 12,000 euros, approximately $15,000. So the table is movable in the Z direction and the X direction. The Y is actually has a ram style head, so you move the whole head in the in the Y direction. It also has power feed and fast rapid in the X direction and the Z direction, but the Y is manual, and you have to use the handle to move the head in and out in the Y direction. The main operating panel on the front carries the wheel for the vertical plane, and on the side you see you have the wheels for the horizontal x-axis. They don't have a handle because you're not really supposed to do the table manually in that direction. You're using the power feed, and that is controlled by the handle on the front of the panel. And we'll just have a look at the knobs and switches you have on the front panel. The rightmost switch there is just to switch on the motor according to the settings that you set on the side. And then there's also a switch for manual, and also there's some programming possibilities where you can program sequences of operation. It's a little bit an old-fashioned early CNC kind of thing. The handle for power feed, you can control it in the horizontal plane x-axis, right and left, and also up and down in the z-axis. And the button controls the rapid. So as soon as you push the button, you have the rapid feed. There's also a start and stop button on the front panel, and you can adjust the feed for the power feed. And these numbers are millimeters per minute, so from 4 millimeters to 500 per minute. You can also see the programming on there's a set of micro switches. I'll explain a little bit about that later. There's a central lubrication with a manual pump where you can lubricate all the ways, and it has a little reservoir for that. The panel on the side contains the main switch and also two settings for the direction, left clockwise or counterclockwise in two different speeds. The speeds are about 2008 and 1400 RPM. There's a switch for the coolant, and there is also two connectors for 6 volt. You can connect the light, and there's also some microscope that you can actually fit in the machine to center the head. The machine came with a DRO. It's just a cheap Chinese thing, but I'll probably settle for that for a while since it's nicely installed. I've removed the actual display at the moment. The gearbox has, I believe, 16 different speeds. I've removed the panel on the gearbox on the side there at the moment, and it's an oil-filled gearbox contained in the head. There you see the panel, and there's supposed to be 3 switches there that I have removed, and different speed from 63 RPM to 2800 depending on the. There's a quill that can be locked, and there's a handle to move the quill. I believe it has a movement of about 60 millimeters, or 2.5 inches or something like that. The taper is a 30 taper, so it's quite small. The machine actually came with 40 or 30. The main feature of the machine is actually the tiltable head. So the machine can mill both vertically and horizontally. That's a quite interesting feature, and it has some locking pins that makes the vertical and horizontal axis quite precise. You can lock it exactly, and you can adjust the pins so you can have repeatable 90 degrees or 0 degrees for the head. It also comes with an overarm support for using longer arbors, and as you can see, it's threaded into what used to be the face of the milling head. I don't have any arbors at the moment, so I need to get that, but that makes the machine quite flexible. You could do horizontal milling, and it's quite robust and sturdy, so it'll be an interesting feature to try out. As I mentioned, there's a system for programming operations on this machine. It's you have a switch controlling the manual operation and 2 sets of automatic operations. The programming is controlled by dogs of different shapes and orientation that you can position in 3 tracks on the horizontal x-axis and the vertical axis. So you can control the x-axis and the z-axis, but not the y-axis. The dogs are read by a series of micro switches that sits in the control box you can see there. And as the table moves, you activate one or more of these micro switches that in turn controls the electronics consisting of a number of relay cards that activate the power feed, the motor, the coolant, etc. You can actually program it to do the same operation on several work pieces on the table. So it's an interesting feature, but I don't think it will be very usable. So I hope you enjoyed this tour of the Schaublin22. I couldn't find any other video on YouTube about the Schaublin, so I thought it would be interesting to present the features of this machine. Sorry for the lousy editing. This is my first attempt at making a video, but I hope you found it interesting. Thanks for watching.